Just like myth holds symbolism for the individuation path of the masculine, fairy tales holds profound symbolism for the feminine individuation path. There is a striking connection between the fairy tale of Snow White and the Tantric Path. And in this episode, we're going to uncover the symbolism of Snow White and how it relates to the path of individuation for the transformation process that women have to go through to move from childhood into psychological womanhood. My name is Silvana. I am a Tantra teacher and the founder of the Venusian Academy, a space for the exploration of the divine feminine arts and Shakta Tantra. It was the middle of winter, and the snowflakes were falling like feathers from the sky. And a queen sat at her window working, and her embroidery frame was of ebony. And as she worked, gazing at times out on the snow, she pricked her finger, and there fell from it 3 drops of blood on the snow. And when she saw how bright and red it looked, she said to herself, "Oh, that I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood of the embroidery frame." Not very long after, she had a daughter, with skin as white as snow, lips as red as snow, and hair as black as ebony, and she was named Snow White. So last week I released a video explaining the different tantric paths and the difference between white, red, and black tantra. So if you haven't watched that, please do so. That's going to help you understand the context of today's conversation and the exploration of Snow White. But if you haven't watched it, I'll just give you a quick summary. In terms of the colors and their symbols, we have white symbolizing life and wisdom, red symbolizing passion and sexuality, and black related to acceptance, death, and transformation. These colors reveal the ingredients for the alchemical process of inner transformation. Whenever we look at red tantra, we're looking at red. And from red, we can also extract the color gold. And this gold is the gold that is also associated to alchemy. So there is a lot of symbolisms and a lot of connection between the tantric path, between alchemy and sexual alchemy, and this specific fairy tale. So what I'm going to do in this video is break down all of the different symbols of this fairy tale and how it relates to the tantric path and the path of individuation for women. So the first symbol that we have is the fact that Snow White does not have a mother because her mother died and she has an evil stepmother. How does this relate? Well, whenever it comes to the path of the individuation for women, the first step is to free ourselves from the grasp of the mother. Whenever we're looking at the mother, we're looking at the devouring aspect of Mother Nature. The part that wants us to stay in this frozen state of childhood, in the immature, dependent woman that is constantly dependent on either nature herself or whatever mother figure is in our life. So that first breakage into I want to grow up, I want to leave behind, that's the symbolism of the dead mother. Now, whenever we look at the stepmother, that is the devouring mother archetype. So check out my video on the devouring mother archetype. If you haven't, I'll link it over here. The second symbol is the fact that she has an absent father. Her father is kind of entangled with the new queen. So he is not really present for Snow White and he's not protecting her. What this means is that Snow White at this stage of her development has no sense of identity. So the journey that she's about to go through of escaping the devouring aspect of the mother and stepping into her own individuation into womanhood requires that she also finds her new sense of identity because that was not provided since she does have this absent father figure. So she's at the mercy of the evil stepmother. Then we look at the forest. Whenever she was kicked out of the castle and she stepped into the forest, stepping into the forest is stepping into the unknown. It involves that black element of death and transformation that we have to go through. And there is a lot of animals and a lot of creatures that are lurking through the shadows. So this is that part of our own inner journey where we have to explore our own inner shadows, our animal nature, our impulses, and confront them, but not get stuck in them. So Snow White, she's not just waiting for somebody to rescue her at the forest. She's running. And this running is like the initiation into the transformation fires. The Huntsman, he is that first masculine figure that is connected to the energy of compassion because he let her go. Why did he let her go? Because he figured she will die anyways. So what's important in this piece of the story is that Snow White begged the Huntsman, like, please, don't, just let me go. Just let me go, right? So it's almost like this sense of responsibility that I'm not going to submit to the power of death that's here, but I'm also taking responsibility for myself by running away into this very scary forest. So that courage of like, okay, I'm begging for my life and I'm going deeper into the forest is part of that death piece of the alchemical process of the fires of initiation. Now comes the 7 dwarfs. So the number 7 is very symbolic. We see it in the Bible. We see it in the number of chakras. It's a highly symbolic number. And if we look at it from the context of Tantra, right? Like you can look at it from like the Christian lens for this conversation. I want to look at it from the Tantric sense. And from that, we have 7 dwarfs indicating the 7 chakra centers. Why the 7 chakra centers? Well, because the symbolism of each dwarf is revealed in their name. They can be the 7 truths or the 7 deadly sins. We also have the 7 teachers, the 7 planets. So whatever lens you want to analyze this fairy tale from, it will make sense. That's the beauty of fairy tales. And whenever we're playing with symbolism, is that it doesn't really matter, what perspective you're looking at, the symbols there, and as long as you like stay on the path decoding the symbol, that's when you'll begin revealing the actual gold of this fairy tale. I like the number 7 because we have, whenever it comes to the lower chakras, we have 4 elements. We have air, water, fire, earth, water, fire, and air. And whenever we look at the spiritual chakras, we have the Trinity. So the Trinity, that idea of 3, is everywhere. We see it in Christianity with like Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. We see it with the archetypes of the feminine, the mother, the maiden, and the crone. And we also see it with in Hindu mythology with the 3 faces of God, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. So this is connected to the higher spiritual centers, and the 4 chakras are connected with the four elements. That's why this indicates the individuation, rooting down into the earth and ascending into our spiritual understanding of ourselves. Now, the apple. The apple is a big one. The apple is that energy of desire. We also see the apple in the story of Adam and Eve. So the apple is highly symbolic of the temptation, seduction, that raw energy of desire. In a way, the apple is also always given by a woman. And we have to look at like the difference of men and women under the context of love and light, right? Like the embodiment of nature and the understanding of nature. In Adam and Eve, Eve gave the apple, which was given by the serpent, right? And the serpent indicates that Kundalini energy, but it's the horizontal movement of Kundalini energy because it's connected to the feminine, which is on the plane, on the earth of the plane. Whenever the Kundalini rises, it's doing the vertical movement, and that vertical movement is connected to the dove of like the masculine and the feminine coming together within ourselves. In Snow White, the one that gives the apple is the evil stepmother, and she shows up as an old woman. So this is the archetype of that devouring mother archetype, which is the power of nature to keep us in this infantilized state of being spiritually dormant to our true nature. In a way, this apple is also a symbol for immortality. Why? Because in both cases, like in the story of Adam and Eve, that was what pulled them out of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is the state of the spiritual infancy of like, I don't know, I'm just here. And the journey outside of the Garden of Eden and the return to the Garden of Eden, that is the path of spiritual individuation for both men and women. When it comes to Snow White, this apple indicates the death that Snow White must go through in order for her to individuate, to go through her journey. So the apple is a very powerful symbol. Here I have an apple. I didn't have a red apple, but kind of reddish. This is a pink apple for pink tantra. There you go. So whenever Snow White is living in the house of the 7 dwarfs, we see an important component here because she is the daughter of a king. But she's able to gain the affection and protection of the seven dwarfs because she's willing to do humble work. So it's this energy of like returning to the earth, the Saturnian energy of I will serve you. In the feminine path, we have the energy of devotion, and devotion serves. So this is an important key element to receive the blessing of the seven truths of the seven chakras. Whenever Snow White is alone, she's informed by the seven dwarfs, like, do not talk to anybody because your evil stepmother wants to kill you. But in her naive innocence and also in her vanity, she falls for it. Why is it her vanity? Because the first time that the evil queen showed up, she showed up with laces for her corset. Why do women wear corsets? To accentuate their waist. So there is a sense of identification with her own beauty. She's also the most beautiful of the whole land. So there is an attachment to that and an identification with that external physical beauty that she has. And that was her first attempt. Her breath got taken away and she couldn't breathe. And then the seven dwarfs removed the laces and she was able to breathe again and come back to life. The second murder attempt was through a poison comb. The poison comb. Whenever we have a comb, same thing. There is this sense of vanity, but now it's no longer a vanity of the body, of like my waist looking small. It's a vanity that poisons our mind. So that was her second death. And she was also rescued by the seven dwarfs. Now, the third one is important because this is when she dies through the apple. The apple has the three colors, right? The apple is what ultimately kills her because the seven dwarfs were unable to revive her after that. And whenever the evil stepmother, the witch, gave her, because it was a witch, gave her the apple had two colors, red and white. The witch ate the white one and Snow White ate the red side of the apple. Red symbolizing the desire, right? So desire as a force that pulls us into the process. What process? The black process, the process of death and transformation. Once she dies and she's found by the seven dwarfs, she's put in a gold coffin. They write king's daughter in the coffin. So there is an identity, a marking that happens. So whenever the king arrives or the prince arrives and he falls in love with Snow White, what does he recognize? Her colors. White as snow, black as ebony, red as blood. So the prince symbolizes her awakened royal inner masculine that comes to revive her. How does he come? He comes with the identity. He comes with knowing that he is the son of the king that is going to own the kingdom, and he is rescuing the king's daughter that is frozen in death in this transformative process. Remember at the beginning I mentioned that Mother Nature wants to keep us in this infantilized state, frozen in the ignorance, frozen in just nature. And what we're doing in the individuation process is encountering our higher nature, our spiritual nature, realizing that we are the king's daughter. The king's daughter. Like there's so much power in that. We see a lot of symbolism also connected to, to the Bible, and like we are the king's daughters. So that is the ultimate revival and the recognition of our true nature, is that we are souls having a human experience. And this journey of life is the transcendence of the animal body into the spiritual body by understanding our spiritual nature as sacred animals, having simply a human experience, but being that soul, being that divinity that is expressing itself as a human being. And then the final symbol here is the red hot iron shoes. So whenever the queen finds out that the king is marrying, and her magic mirror tells her like, oh, you're not the most beautiful woman. The new, the princess, she is the most beautiful woman. She cannot help it, but she's like compelled to go. She has to see, she's enraged. And whenever she arrives, she gets put on the red hot iron shoes. Iron is also a metal associated with Saturnian energies. And, red being the color of passion, had iron being like the burning element of this anger, envy, and vanity that keeps us stuck in that infantilized state and prevent us from finding our higher nature. Whenever the queen dies, that is the end of the inner fragmentation. That is the end of envy, because envy is only present whenever we are disconnected from our true nature. This also indicates the purification from the corrosive qualities that we have to conquer whenever we are on the feminine path. Finally, the wedding. The wedding is the merging between the inner feminine and then the inner masculine. That is the inner weaving process of Tantra, the marriage between the inner Shiva and the inner Shakti. So that's why most of these fairy tales end up in that marriage happening, because that's not symbolizing an external marriage of a prince that comes and rescues me. That is the individuation process. So why did I say like this is connected to Tantra? Well, because Tantra is the weaving of our inner Shiva with our inner Shakti. So this tale is also a revelation of this process, and Tantra offers a path for this process of individuation. That's why I love it so much, and I invite you to join me on this amazing journey of the Tantric Path. Individuation for women is about the liberation from the death mother archetype, meaning that part of ourselves that keeps us in this victimized animalistic state, keeps us in the dormant princess energy. And it's also a symbol of the inner death and transformation that we must go through in order to find that inner prince and create that inner marriage within. This inner marriage is what allows us to reclaim our throne. The throne being that higher seat, that crown chakra of the higher consciousness, in being able to sit in the reality of what we truly are. Life is the journey of the union that happens after the separation that we encounter upon birth. So when we're born, we're separated from our oneness. We are born alone in this world, and it is finding within that union that unifies us back to our Father, back to the King, back to the throne, back with the fragmented part of ourselves. Snow White offers the esoteric keys to understand this process, and Tantra offers the path to be able to achieve that inner union within again. So if you're interested in exploring Tantra, then please check out my mentorship program, Bharani. In this mentorship program, we go through the path of Pink Tantra, of uniting the white and the red elements of Tantra. And of course, there's a little bit of black, because we do have to transform. We do have to go through those inner deaths. And this is part of the process. This is part of that trinity to be able to find that inner union within. And this is how you individuate, how you have that psychological maturation process from the frozen maiden that doesn't know her nature to the woman that is embodied in the truth of her throne and her essence as a divine being. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it. That really helps. Subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.